Hello, and thank you for joining me on this beautiful overcast day. I filmed this in the first week of July. It was really chilly outside this day. I was going to go to New London, Connecticut on the drive, but I looked at the weather forecast and it showed severe rain heading out that way. So I decided to stay a little bit closer to home and went to someplace that I'd always wanted to go. I constantly see the city of Narragansett in travel posters, and they have this big, beautiful colonial building prominently featured in all of the advertisements for Narragansett. And so I was under the impression that the city was this beautiful, older, colonial town on the side of the water, a lot like Newport, Rhode Island. If you ever come to Rhode Island, you have to go to Newport. They've got a five-star fort called Fort Adams. They have jazz festivals. You can ride your bikes everywhere. There are beaches. There are houses older than the founding of the United States in the city. It's a very large colonial city, absolutely like going back in time. It's beautiful. So come to Newport, check it out. I'm going to save you a bunch of time here, and I'm going to cut right to the disappointment. So I made this drive, I got all the way there, and that's when I discovered that really the only thing that they have colonial in the city of Narragansett was kind of like that one building. Yeah, like their town square near the building was empty. They had a lot of modern timeshares and condos, and there's a beach down there, and they have some restaurants, but nothing that I was expecting. It was not the time that I thought it would be. So I probably won't be going back there anytime soon, unless I'm passing through the region or I have a specific reason to go to Narragansett again. But yeah. Anyways, I thought might as well not waste the footage of the trip. So here we are driving down there, and there are some things I do want to talk to you about that are rather relevant and pressing. So today is July 25th, and for many people here in the United States and across the world, record high temperatures are being set. I know in Arizona the news keeps screaming about how Phoenix has had more days over 110 degrees in a row than ever before. And having lived in Arizona, I can tell you it is unpleasant when it's over 110. It's not the end of the world. For me, like once it gets above 115, then I'm unhappy. I remember I'd be in my house and I could stick my hand on one of the outermost walls from inside my house and feel the heat radiating in when it was like 117. That was just a wonderful experience. Let me tell you, your electricity bills in the summer are crazy, crazy high. So another worry for Arizona is up north. It gets very, very dry with all of this heat. There's a lot of kindle out there, and we end up with some terrible, terrible forest fires. Although thankfully we did get a little bit of moisture at the end of last year, which did help alleviate our drought conditions somewhat. So if we could have a few more years of rain like that, we would be golden. But in terms of just enjoying your life and being outside and being happy, those kind of summers are not where it's at. The wintertime is great though. However, this sort of segues into New London, Connecticut. I live by the coast here in Rhode Island. I'm not too far from it, so I'm getting to experience the sea breeze, the cooling effect that comes with living near the ocean. I'm not on the water, but I'm near enough to experience this effect. And so in the summertime, when it's really hot, sort of more inland in Rhode Island, it'll be 10 degrees cooler. And in the wintertime, when it's extremely cold and you have snow, a few feet of snow inland, you won't necessarily have that same issue by the water because it'll be a little bit warmer. So it really helps to keep things more temperate. It's certainly not as good as California. You look at the sea breeze effect in California if you live along the coast, like let's say San Diego, where it is perfect at all times of the year, just absolutely gorgeous. That is probably one of the most desirable places to live in that sort of region, but it's also unaffordable for the vast majority of people. Listen, I can't even afford to live there. So like, I wanted to tell people about this city that I found. It was it was when my friend was out here like 3-4 weeks ago. And so we were looking at a map of the region, trying to figure out where to go. And I saw the city called New London, knew nothing about it, but I'm like, wow, this is a really cool name. Thought it might be a throwback to the United Kingdom and have cool British stuff or something. So we just decided to make the road trip because we're exploring and having a good time. And that's also why I don't have any footage of it right now, because I am not one of those people who wants to shove a camera in the car window when you're driving for more than an hour with your friend and record every moment of it. That's just weird and uncomfortable. I am going to go back at a later date and get a lot of footage from New London when I have an opportunity. But we drove down there, and it's sort of like this steampunk, post-industrial, lower well, not lower income, like lower middle class neighborhood. It's a city. It's by the water, and it's older. It's older. I love the property values down there. Like the rest of the United Country, the rest of the country's gone insane with home prices. And for New London, the home prices have gone up along with the rest of the country, but they're actually affordable. I've been on Zillow and I've been looking across the seaboard area, and it's like a place where any person watching this right now, if you're younger, if you're 18, you're 20, if you haven't started your career yet and you want to go into a blue collar trade and you make a little bit of money, you could go and buy a home there. Even heck, even if you're just downright like poor. I saw one house. It was a foreclosure from the year 1920. It was a 3-bedroom, 1-bath on sale for $143,000. Definitely in need of a lot of work, but at least you're close enough to the ocean where you can still experience the sea breeze effect. And then there were older homes. They had a home that must have been over, like 100 years old easily. I think it was 6 bedrooms or something, and it was maybe 390,000. I bet you could talk them down to like 350. I don't think there's a lot of demand, even right now, for New London, because it gives off the appearance of a dying town. I've talked to some of the people who live there online, and they told me that they've been trying to revitalize it for like the last 40 years, so it just hasn't been really effective. I've seen their downtown area. It's got some things there, other portions are closed. It has that feel of downtown that is sort of half alive, half dead. But they do have some really awesome places. There was this seafood lobster shack by the water. I can't remember the name of it, but I will show it to you next time I head back down there. But their housing prices are phenomenal. If you go outside of the city into the countryside surrounding it, you can get like a $500,000 house that is quite large, modern, on a decent amount of land. Like in Arizona, the same comparable house would probably be $1.5 million. So the property taxes are on the higher end of the spectrum. Inside the city and outside of it, but I can't see them going much higher because they're already high. Whereas in the rest of the United States, I could see property taxes in most municipalities going up as everything costs more, workers, materials, things like that, where, New London, there's not going to be too much more headroom, but people would probably be rioting if it went that much higher. But still affordable, still affordable for your average person. Uncomfortable, but affordable. And after talking to the people who live there, some folks say that there's crime. Other folks are adamant that there is very little crime. You can leave your kids' bicycles out in front of your house, and they will still be there when you get home later. People tell me that they've never had their Amazon packages stolen. They're pretty honest, the New London residents, about the fact that, yeah, some neighborhoods are a little shoddy, but it's not like one continuous poor part of town. It's sort of broken up. You've got good neighborhoods interspersed with not so good neighborhoods. And that way you don't really feel like you're on the wrong side of the town in any particular portion of it. So I like that effect. And another thing I like about New London is the geography of it. I'm telling you this, I'm sharing this information with you because someone I used to work with sort of opened my eyes many years ago. He was talking at work when I was in Arizona about how him and his wife were probably going to leave the state because they were worried about climate change and that it was going to become unbearably hot in Arizona as time went on, and they would just rather go live someplace nicer. And that's not why I moved to Rhode Island, but it's always been in the back of my mind. And so now I'm looking at places. I mean, now that I live here in a place where it is temperate and it's enjoyable, I want everyone to have the same opportunity, certainly, if possible, and I'm going to make that information known to you. But where was I? So I was talking, oh, yeah. If I was going to do it again, one of the things that is always important to me, right, if I was doing this, is that I want to be above sea level. If there's a hurricane, if a hurricane should happen, and hurricanes hit the eastern seaboard, every so often. Mostly they're down in the south. That's the southern issue. But hurricanes do come up north. That's not unheard of. Probably a few every year. The hurricanes can drive the water onto the land, and depending on how bad that hurricane is, they can go inland quite a bit. So you don't want to have a property that is at sea level because salt water will destroy cars, it will destroy houses, and the region in the New London area is a little hilly. There are plenty of places that you can get that are near the water, but they're on hills. They're elevated. And so that, to me, is perfect. And I could see some of this because not only was I on Zillow, but I did go into a virtual reality application called Google Earth. And so you can see yourself firsthand. I saw several places that I would have bought myself if I were in the market again. So that's important to me. And then another factor that I if I could do it again, is that I want anyways, if I'm going to have a place, as the years go on and the water warms in our oceans, hurricanes are predicted to become more severe. So we're going to see more class 4 hurricanes, more class 5 hurricanes. The winds will be more damaging, the waters will be more damaging. And so anything that you can do to sort of protect yourself, protect your house and shelter yourself will be important. You look in Florida, they're already having issues with insurance. Insurance companies are pulling out of the state, not necessarily just because of potential hurricane events that will grow in severity in the future. There are other reasons too, like the state of Florida made it really easy for scammy people to commit insurance fraud against these insurance companies. Now they're losing just a ton of money. But the weather is a problem. I had a friend who lived down there, and he told me his hurricane deductible was $10,000, and I can only see that having grown once we had that conversation maybe 8-9 years ago, maybe a decade ago. So probably even more now. If you can even acquire it from a private party company. So yeah, you don't want to be caught without insurance. You don't want to have to rebuild, especially not this day and age. Everything's going up in value. Look at those poor folks in Vermont. Many of them probably thought they were safe because they were in areas that hadn't flooded in over 100 years. Like, they were historic events the last time it had ever flooded. So no one really expected that something like that could happen or would happen again. I'm sure some people might not have carried flood insurance. And those that did, even if they are made whole after this latest catastrophe, it will probably be very expensive for them to reinsure if they can even do that. So you don't want to have to rebuild a second time is what I'm getting at. And that's why I like the fact that New London is kind of protected by portions of Long Island. If a hurricane comes, the hurricane will lose some of its kinetic force when it runs over other people's homes and that land that sort of buffers you from the hurricane. And then there's another smaller island called Fisher's Island, or Fisherman's Island, and that also provides some limited protection to New London. And I know that's a terrible thing to say, but it's everyone's decision on where they want to live, and those people are multimillionaires, and if they want to live there, that is most certainly their call. So I'm trying to give you the best advice I can as to where I would want to live, were I to, get tired of living in an oven and want to move. And I know this week in the Midwest, it's everyone's turn out there to enjoy record high temperatures. You look at Greece, their country's on fire. The island of Rhodes is just burning. Thousands and thousands, tens of thousands of tourists are having to be evacuated. And we will see wildfires all across the United States. It's not just due to global warming this year that it's extremely hot. It's also because of the El Nino effects. But still, it is sort of eye-opening as to what our future may hold for us. And so if you can get in early, if you, I'm not saying you have to buy a house tomorrow. I don't think that my video on the New London area is going to be wildly viral and that next week all the homes will be sold off or along the coast or whatever. But you could start planning now. People are very complacent, so they will live wherever they've lived. They've got their friends, they've got their family there. And so the thought of like picking up everything and going to someplace they've never been to before is a challenging one, to say the least. It was easy for me to come to Rhode Island because I have family here. I have spent time here in my youth, and so I'm kind of familiar with the region. It wasn't that difficult to get out here, get employed, all that good stuff. But for other people, it will be not so easy. One thing, and that's why I plan to make my video on New London thorough, but there's a lot of industry in New London, which I like. So there's the Coast Guard Academy, and that's not going to go anywhere. The Coast Guard will probably grow as a force. There is a large regional hospital that's going to be around. So if you have medical skills, boom, there you go. And further up the Thames River on the other side, there is a the submarine school, I do believe, for the U.S. military. So and on the water itself, I believe there's some sort of boat building industry. So there are jobs in New London. In talking about cities like New London, one thing I do want to point out is that I am discussing regions in the Northeast. The South, I believe, is just not going to be a really great place to be living, especially if you're on the coast, because of the severity of hurricanes that they will encounter in the future. So you would want to go north, where we don't have the issue nearly as much, and the weather forecasts sort of plan that out. But yeah, I do think more people are going to end up, as years go by, moving to New London. So that house that I was discussing that was for sale for $390,000, you probably bargain them down to 350. It was built 100 years ago. Maybe it's got 6 or 8 bedrooms. A person could buy that, and then in the future, you're renting out every room in that house. One thing to note is many of the older homes in this region do not have central air conditioning. I know I do not have central AC, which is a bit of a change. You have to have that in Arizona. But out here, if you're in the coastal area, really all you have to do is kind of open up a window and let the breeze in. And that's something I've been doing thus far. I do have a window unit ready to go. We'll see what happens in the month of August if it's still bearable. But that's pretty cool and does help keep the electricity bill down a little bit. But of course, in the winter time, then you have to turn the heat on. Otherwise, your pipes will freeze and burst, and then you're SOL. And the winter electricity and heating bills can be very high. So, but that's part of it. And it's not that bad out here in the Connecticut, Rhode Island area. The winters are comparatively mild versus, like, let's say, Maine. And I don't have cold resistance, so you'll probably hear me cry a little bit more because I'm from Arizona, where it gets up to 122 sometimes in the summer. That's what I'm used to. So even 50 degrees is chilly. 40 degrees is going to be very painful for me. I know there are places in the U.S. where it gets even worse than that, but thank goodness I'm in a coastal area, and it shouldn't be the end of the world. Not like the people who are living off of the Great Lakes and getting the snow effect in the wintertime. They're getting like 10 feet of snow or something crazy like that. Another positive to living in the region is you're probably not going to get a lot of forest fires, as there is a lot of precipitation, so everything is lush and green. It's also very relaxing, just the environment out here. Like sometimes I'll get off of work, get home, and maybe it's been a really stressful day, so you make yourself a cup of tea, you go sit out on your patio, you listen to the birds chirp, watch the sunset in the evening. It's like 70 degrees out. Just extremely relaxing, which is something I've always been searching for. I'm not terribly far from the beaches either, which is kind of cool. Like being near a beach is a plus for a lot of folks. When friends come out here, I take them to the beach. I'm like, it's the beach. You get paid $25 for parking, which is just wonderful. I'm probably not so far that I couldn't bike to the beach. It would be a very long bike ride, but it's doable. And then if you bike there, you don't have to pay for parking, which is awesome. But I'm not even really a beach person. Obviously, I don't have to work on my tan, and I just don't care to be laying on the beach for hours on end. Some people love to lay there in the sand. Just lay there in the sun, in the sand for 4 or 5 hours. I nope, can't do it. That just, I'd rather read a book in my own house than be at the beach. But I do enjoy walks along the beach. I know that sounds so corny, like out of some Hinge ad or something. I enjoy long walks on the beach. That part I do like. In fact, there are a lot of walkable places out here, and in many of the towns along the East Coast, they have all these cool little different places. When I was in Newport, my friend and I went to this really big tourist attraction called Cliff Walk, and it's this 3.5 mile walk along basically the cliffs where the ocean is pounding it. And so right to your left is the water, and then to your right are these beautiful mansions, and it's just gorgeous. And then we walked back like another several miles to get to the car, because when you get to the end, we didn't realize that there was a free bus that took you back into town. But even then, we didn't mind the walk at all. It was wonderful exercise. It was beautiful. And surprisingly, there weren't that many people on foot. Like the tourists, I guess they only go maybe the first mile of Cliff Walk, and then they all just turn back, because it becomes uneven after a while, and then you're kind of climbing on rocks and stuff. But it wasn't like anything crazy. If you're much older, it would be difficult to navigate, but anyone, under 50 in decent shape, it should not be impossible. So I was shocked that there was only like 5% of the crowd by the time we got to the end of Cliff Walk. And then there was this really cool beach, right next to a very expensive private beach was this free public beach. So that was cool. A lot of hotties out there too, FYI. Oh, over on our left is the Narragansett Beach. It's quite big, as you can see. So apparently that's a very big draw. Like many people in Rhode Island, they drive south just to go to this one beach. And as I said to you before, not a beach person, so you will not catch me in beach traffic, which apparently can be pretty bad. I couldn't imagine even wanting to be in traffic for hours just to get to the beach. Oh, goodness, no. I'd rather go sit by a pond or something. And we're coming into town. Up ahead in the distance on the right, you can see the, I don't know if they're condos or timeshares, but those are new builds. I thought there'd be a lot of colonial buildings over here, but the only thing I really saw was the main attraction, which is we're coming up on. I'll post some walking footage of me around the building. Um, you won't see the look of disappointment on my face. I'm just filming outwards, but just know that it is there. So yeah, that's Narragansett for you. People love it, apparently. I saw a lot of folks walking, a lot of people who like to walk, and there was free parking down here, which was wonderful. Probably because it was going to be a rainy day, and I guess when it rains out here, people don't want to go anywhere at all. Like they do not like the rain in this weather. I like the rain if I don't have to go to work or anything like that. Then I want to be out and about and driving around, and wouldn't even care if it rains on me. Like, if I'm caught uncovered, just see me smiling as I think of the scorching deserts of Arizona and how lucky we are to have rain, because it's a real problem in Arizona with the drought, like every year. It got a little bit better last year, but we still need a lot more rain. Like, if we could get a quarter of the rain that they have out here, we'd be set. We would be set, but it is what it is. So come to the East Coast, join me in the rain, or at least think about it. That's why I'm making this video, to plant the seed that you might think of this before the other people think of it, and then the home prices become unaffordable. California, most people certainly cannot do it, but the East Coast, there are places that a regular person could afford, and I'm just putting it out there, and we will explore the topic further as time goes on, because I hate to see people suffering in sweltering, awful heat. So, first mover advantage, I guess that's what I'm trying to tell you. All right, well, thank you for joining me today. I will end the video with some footage of me walking around, and there we go. Oop, I lied. We're not done just yet. Since I'm filming this, I might as well tell you a little bit about it. So this structure is called the Towers, and it was part of a casino structure built in the 1880s. There was a fire in the year 1900, and the rest of the casino burnt down. So that was a bit of a shocker to me. I thought this was older than that and had to do with coastal industry, maybe fishing or something like that. But if I'd known it was part of a casino, that would have had me far less enthusiastic to even come out here. I'm not the biggest fan of casinos. At one point I used to think they should be banned outright, but whatever, they exist. States and cities can make money off of them, so I guess there is a little good that comes out of them, but they're rather wasteful. I'm not the biggest fan of gambling. I got that bug out of my system when I was really young. It's an interesting story. I worked in a supermarket, and they had one of those self-serve scratcher machines where you could buy the scratch-off tickets. And I wasn't like addicted to scratching, but I did see one day they had a roll of Star Trek themed scratch-off tickets, and that was the hook that got me, because I love Star Trek. So I immediately started putting my money into the machine, and that's when I discovered that someone had accidentally put the $2 scratch-off tickets into the $1 area. So I was getting the $2 tickets for $1. And so the light bulb went on in my head, and I immediately put an out of order sign on the machine. I was 18 years old, so I was just like, this was the greatest thing that had ever happened to me at that point. I ran to the bank, and this was before, I think, well, I didn't have a credit card at the time anyways. Maybe did use credit cards, I don't remember. But I got a whole bunch of cash, and then I went back, and I don't even remember if it was 200 scratch-off tickets or maybe it was 100 scratch-off tickets. And then I went home, and I was gleefully scratching off all these tickets. And what I discovered, like, sometimes you had a $5 winner, sometimes you had a $50 winner. I think there was one that, I don't remember the numbers. But what I do remember is that after scratching off either 100 or 200 scratch-off tickets, I broke even, and that was with a 50% discount. And so that really opened my eyes as to your odds and how things work when you are doing scratchers. And I'd always, like, my family had given me scratch-off tickets as a kid growing up, and so I'd kind of been a little bit partial to scratch-offs. That would have been like the hook for me in my life for gambling, and that was extinguished that day. So I'm kind of thankful for that experience. The only other time really I have won any significant amount of money in a casino was there was a Star Trek themed slot machine, and I won $80 there. So I think as long as I stay away from any sort of Star Trek themed gambling devices, I should be good for the rest of my life. I'm not saying that I don't gamble at all. Like, if I go to Vegas, well, nowadays I would probably drop $30, but in the past, before inflation became as much of an issue as it is now, I would have dropped like 20. And then, of course, I'd have felt guilty. I'd been like, well, that could have bought me a meal at Burger King or something. So I don't understand gambling addiction. You see people who suffer from it and they just piss away all their money, and it makes no sense to me. I can't understand why they cannot stop. I mean, basically, they're hurting themselves, but it is quite the addiction. So I'm very thankful that that never took hold of me at a younger age, because apparently that's when it sets in. I guess you get the dopamine rush, the dopamine hit from gambling, and then you just keep searching for it the rest of your life. If somebody gave me $1 million, I would go to a casino, pretend that I'm a high roller to the casino, be like, hey, give me a free hotel room and a free steak dinner. I'm going to go hard tonight. And then I would just drop my $20 and leave the next day. So I'll still buy a Powerball ticket if it's like $1 billion, but really you're just buying the dream. Oh, check out these beautiful houses here. Just gorgeous. They're still a little bit too low to sea level for my likes. If a hurricane comes, I do think that they would get damaged from storm surge, but that's just me. And that building that we're seeing right there, the more modern one, is called the Coast Guard House. And it's got really high reviews as far as dining goes. Wonderful views from inside of the restaurant. Really romantic place to take your date. But there are a lot of restaurants that are on the coast here in Rhode Island, so it's not like super unique or anything like that. But I like the look of the structure with the big windows. Well, that about covers our experience here with the towers here in Narragansett, Rhode Island. So I want to thank you for joining me on this video that's kind of been all over the place, but I like to got to fill the time with something, right? Well, there you have it. And yeah, enjoy the rest of your day.